we all have goals in life. And I find it really interesting because goals are always something that can be elusive. They can be something that you're just never quite sure of how to get to. And I've heard different ways of getting to those goals. Everybody has goals, whether you write them down, whether you realize that you have goals or not. Sometimes those goals are just to kind of get out of your box or to go do the next thing. Sometimes the goal is to buy a house. Pay attention to goals that are in the back of your mind and to goals that you feel like are getting away from you. Because we only have so long on this earth. Hey, how you doing? Sam Spinelli, your trusted real estate guy. I'm self-employed. I'm an entrepreneur. I make other people sick about reading books about self-improvement and trying to find ways to get to the next goal. I personally would rather read a book about self-improvement than I would rather read a fiction novel. And I think, a lot of people that kind of irritates when I talk to them, but that's just how I am. And goals, personal goals, life goals, there's a lot of different types of goals. One of my personal goals has always been to own a horse. As a kid, I always loved the idea of a horse. And as I grew up, I started realizing over and over again that goal was getting further and further away. So recently, I have been able to purchase a horse. And not only one, but 3. So my sons also have this love of animals. It's easy to get a dog. It's kind of easy to get a cat. Sometimes that's a goal as well. I happen to have a dog. I happen to have a cat. But it's amazing at having this goal out in front of you and not being able to obtain it and feeling like it's getting away from you. That's the piece that you have to pay attention to. And so here is kind of the journey in my buying a horse and finding the horse for my kids as well. So my kids and I started talking about a horse, and they started talking about how much they would love to have a horse as well. And so I thought, you know what? It's something that I hadn't thought about for so long. And it just came back up. We're like, okay, let's make this happen. So it's really interesting because it's quite an undertaking to go through the process of getting a horse. I'd been on trail rides a couple of times and come to find out that the horses that you go on trail rides with, they're very elderly horses, and they very much know the route to take. They know exactly where they're going. They know, and they also know that at the end of it all, once they get back, they're going to get their treats and they're going to get fed. But what's interesting when you're looking at the kind of the world of the horse and the world of the horses, there's a lot of people out there that do know horses. And there's also a lot of people out there who are happy to sell you a horse that is not the right horse. It's not the right fit, and you could seriously get injured. Horses, many times, they don't like just anybody on them. They have their instincts, and they know if somebody gets on them and that person is not a rider who knows what they're doing, not trained in any way, and this person hasn't done any groundwork with them as well, and groundwork is just petting them, doing their hooves, brushing them, and getting to know them a little bit. If somebody just hops on a horse, and it's a horse that may not want somebody on them, that person can get seriously hurt. They can get bucked off, the horse can rear up. There's all sorts of different things that can happen, and it can be a serious injury for someone who falls off of a horse, especially when you're 40-something, right? And so you want to be cautious. But these are all the different things that I've learned throughout. So the first horse that we bought was for my youngest son. He was the one who was really driven with it, and he was the one who we first got lessons for. And inside those lessons, that was kind of the step that we took. So once I realized that just getting the horse wasn't the easiest thing in the world, I thought, oh boy, this is actually going to be a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to be. So for Jesse, I said, why don't we start with lessons? From that point moving forward, we'll take it one step at a time. I wanted to see if he could commit to it. I wanted to see if this is something that he would continue to love to do. And so got him lessons. He continued to love to do it. And so the next step is you can lease a horse. And so I looked into leasing a horse, and I knew eventually in my heart that he was going to have a horse and I was going to have a horse and that his older brother Jack was going to have a horse as well. So for me, instead of leasing a horse, it makes more sense to find a horse to purchase that would do well for Jess, and a horse that he could ride and he could connect with. And so that was the next step of the journey. from that point, I started making phone calls. For me, what I've learned is that if I want to get something done, I need to learn about it. I need to find more information about it, and I need to find people who are willing to talk to me about it. And that sometimes is the hard part, because I made a lot of phone calls to ranches, to organizations, to people that knew more about horses than I did, which wasn't very hard to find, by the way, because I knew nothing about horses, even though I've always wanted one. And so some of those phone calls, I was hung up on many, many times because people just didn't want to talk about it for whatever reason. I was told a lot of false information about horses. I was told plenty of times, oh yeah, we've got a horse for you. And then as I started to learn more about horses, I realized that not everybody is forthright and giving all the information about specific horses. And so we eventually did find Jesse's horse, and the first horse that we bought was Sunny. We went and met Sunny. Actually, the ranch that Sunny lives on is actually where the horses are currently. And we built a fence here to get ready for them. And also, we're learning about the horses, and that's a very important piece of it. So the first horse was Sunny, which is Jesse's horse. And it worked out perfectly because a person who was leasing Sunny is actually training Jesse on how to ride Sunny and to work with horses. And Sunny's a beautiful, beautiful horse. She's a thoroughbred. She was a polo pony. And for me, whenever I thought about getting a horse, I always wanted to get a young horse. Horses live to be a very old age. They live to be 30 years old sometimes even older. And so Sunny is actually 18 years old. So Jesse got Sunny, and Jesse started training with Sunny right away. What was nice about that was the person who sold Sunny to us, she has been around horses a very long time, and she is very well versed. And I said, okay, you know what? I went to make the deal with her, and she said, well, hold on, not yet. I want to make sure that these two get along. And so that was an important piece. After a month of actually having Sunny and Jesse to make sure they were compatible, at that point we actually purchased Sunny. And so then from there moving forward, I started to look for a horse as well. Lots of drives, lots of going out and looking for the horse, lots of meeting people. And it was necessary to connect with the horse. And connecting with the horse, what I found was I got a little impatient at one point. So I thought, you know what? I just got to get this horse. But again, to me, it goes back to goals. You know, what is your goal? Is your end goal to have a connection with a horse and to be able to move forward? I did get a little impatient, but at the same time, I do believe that the universe is always with us. And as we pay attention to what we are doing and focusing and trying to make those next steps, I feel that the universe always rewards that. So I bought this next horse sight unseen. And again, there's plenty of people out there that will tell you anything you want to hear. I looked at another horse of this guy's, and the owner of the ranch said, well, you know what, she's really skinny, and it seems like she might have some other issues. Well, that's the truth. She's really skinny, and she has a lot of other issues. So that's Sugar. She's definitely skinny, and so the first thing to do, I've had Sugar for 2 months, and I have not even ridden her yet. So I'm thinking that, okay, so I rushed too fast, but you know what? What I find with Sugar is that it's more just part of the journey. It's part of the journey to have patience. Once I saw the state of this horse, I realized that, you know what, Sugar needs me just as much as I eventually want to ride with her. And so this horse, she's by far the sweetest horse that I've ever met. And these different types of horses. So Sunny is a thoroughbred, and she was a polo pony. She's an Argentinian polo pony. Then Sugar is a quarter horse. And she is trained on Western, and it seems to be Western only. And so Sunny speaks Spanish, and Sugar speaks English. But that's kind of, it's kind of this interesting thing, because horses do live for a long time. And so inside of their journey through life, they are passed in different lives, so to speak. They're kind of passed from person to person. So Sunny started off as a polo pony. Typically, polo ponies will actually start off as racehorses. And then Sugar started off most likely on a ranch. These different horses are raised different ways, and they have these different kind of lifestyles as they go. And it's really interesting. So with Sugar, that was my main point is, you know what? I'm a beginning rider. I want to have a horse with a mild temperament. For me personally, I'm just looking for trail rides, and I'm probably not looking to run all that often with the horse. So, well, I definitely don't get the running with Sugar. Sugar, that's for sure right now. But with Sugar, she is progressing nicely. And when I first got her, like I said, very, very skinny. So I've got Sugar now. We have Sunny, that's Jesse's. At one point in time, Jack, my oldest son, had said, you know what, Daddy, I don't want the horse anymore. I'm just not really feeling that. Jack is the avid fisherman. He loves fish. He loves animals as well. And I started thinking about, you know what, there's no way that Jack isn't going to go with us on trail rides. It just doesn't make any sense. So Sugar came, not rideable, and I thought, okay, maybe it makes sense to have another horse. This next process of trying to figure out what's the next step as far as should I have a horse or should I not have another horse? At this point I have two. And so mentally I'm thinking, okay, is now the next step to get another horse? Should I lease a horse at this point maybe? Because I'm not sure what because Sugar's health was actually questionable when I first got her. She's getting stronger and it seems like she's going to be good. Thankfully, again, wonderful horse, sweetest horse that I have personally met to this day, and everybody who meets her says the same. So she's got to be a sweet horse. She's very, very sweet. But she does have some health concerns. And so then I started to open up my mind and kind of open up my heart to say, okay, you know what? Maybe it's time to have a different horse. So I started thinking about that. And then the owner of the ranch says, hey, listen, you know what? I know that you have Sugar, but I'm not sure. And I had not even said anything to her. And she said, you know what? I know you have Sugar, but there's this owner that I know that has had this horse for a while. And it sounds like they may want to sell this horse. And so I thought, okay, well, I feel like this is the universe talking to me. So yeah, let me take a look. So eventually, Ziggy is the third horse that it will actually be mine. So it turns out, initially, I had Sugar. As I was working with Sugar, I started thinking about Jack. So I had a conversation with Jack, and he and I communicated about it. And I said, Jack, I know you said you don't really want a horse, but when Jesse and I are on trail rides and stuff, I have a feeling you're probably going to come with us. And he said, yeah, you know what? I do want a horse, and I'm willing to commit to taking care of the horse. And so at the time, I was still looking at Ziggy, and I had Sugar. And so I told him, I said, listen, let's go work with Ziggy and Sugar, and it's up to you. Whichever one you work with the best, it's entirely up to you. Now, Ziggy is also a thoroughbred. She's 12 years old. She was a polo pony and a racehorse in Argentina as well. So Jack rode Ziggy. The first time Jack rode Ziggy actually was not the most stellar experience for either of us, because I gave him some bad information. For me, if you squeeze your knees, that helps the horse to stop. Sit in your seat and squeeze your knees, it helps the horse to stop. If you squeeze your legs, then it's a different story. And again, Ziggy's a racehorse. So I told Jack, if you need her to stop, squeeze your legs. So he was squeezing his entire legs, and Ziggy was off so fast. Again, racehorse, a very fast horse. We were able to get her to slow down. Thankfully, everything worked out fine. But even after that, Jack was riding Ziggy, and he was riding her for a while, and he still rides her now because Sugar's still not ready to be ridden. But so at first, Jack says, you know what? Yes, I love Ziggy. Ziggy's the horse that I want. I said, perfect. So I'll take Sugar. Still my speed. And so after a little while, Jack actually just grew an attachment with Sugar. And so now Sugar is Jack's horse and Ziggy's my horse, which works out great because I love Ziggy. But this is kind of the journey for me and my kids with horses so far. And in reflecting on this, it's really interesting because, like I said, self-improvement books and seminars and stuff like that, to me, the one thing that always makes sense for a goal is to look at it as a journey. Whether it's a goal to hit the next day or whether it's a goal to hit in 20 years from now. It needs to be mentally in your head and it needs to be written out as well as you go. It needs to be a map. You can't get someplace by wishing it. You can't get someplace by hoping it. You have to work for it and you have to find how do you get there? And that's how it works. You don't just expect things to drop from the sky. You need to put your effort into it. You have to find what's the best way to get from point A to point B. If my goal is Z, I've got a lot of steps to get there. And what's my next step to take towards my next goal? Well, that's my current journey of horses. And that's my current experience of horses. I love horses and I still love these animals. And I'm so thankful that I've been able to take this journey, and even more so that my kids are on this journey with me. It's really amazing. Hey, listen, if you ever need anything with real estate, give me a call. Phone number is 408-393-9294. Take care.